What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Bronx Pinstripes show. Redo. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Bronx Pinstripes show. We're brought to you today by Game Time. Game Time is the easiest way to buy tickets to sporting events, concerts, comedy shows, or whatever you want to go to for a limited time now through the end of October. You can get $20 off your first purchase by downloading the Game Time app, creating an account, and use promo code BRONX. If you've been listening to our show all season and you have not done that yet, what the hell are you waiting for? Scott, I have a leadoff question for you. We're going to do like a little radio intro. Scott, welcome. Leadoff question for you. If you could, I've had a lot of coffee this morning.
Yeah.
If you could erase the 2003 Aaron Boone home run, and that would mean you don't know if the Yankees beat the Red Sox that year. It's unknown. It goes to the 12th inning, 13th inning, and whatever happens, happens. But it would also mean Aaron Boone was never hired as Yankees manager. Would you do it?
No.
Okay, and I'll tell you why I'm asking. Last night I was death scrolling Instagram, and somehow highlights of the 2003 Game 7 Yankees, some account posted like all the great highlights from that game on Instagram, like the Giambi homers, the comeback in the 8th inning, Mussina coming out of the bullpen, Mariano shutting them down for multiple innings, and Boone's home run, and then post-game interviews and everything. And as I was watching, I was like legitimately into it. I was like, flashbacks to 2003. I was watching with my dad on the couch late night, so excited. I would not trade that for anything, even though right now Aaron Boone is ruining the Yankees.
Yeah, that's the thing. You're asking me to get rid of a great memory, one that I truly love. And I have so many. I've told the story in the past, and like when I watched that game, because I had that game on delay. I had like a flag football game or something that night or whatever. And I was in school, and a bunch of my guys are Red Sox fans, and I had a few Yankees fans down there when I went to school in Virginia. And it was amazing. It was literally on like VHS. We had to like tape switch and everything, and we had no idea what the outcome was. We just went like la la la, and no one told us.
It was easy to not know things back
at that
then.
point. Yeah. Well, people were still talking on the sidelines, but no idea. And I was able to watch that, at a specific time, and it's a great memory. So no, that said, like these last memories, it's not like these last memories are egregiously horrible memories in my brain for my life. They're bad years. It's not fun to watch a lot of times, but every single time a memory like the home run that he hit, will win out.
It was funny because in his post-game on-field interview, he was basically speechless, but then he went into like Aaron Boone mode where he was like, and I never thought we were out of it. We were having good at-bats. We were getting to Pedro, and, we've got to Pedro all season. I'm like, oh, that's it's just classic Aaron Boone. That's probably exactly why he was hired. Brian Cashman went back to that post-game interview, and he's like, we need just a motivator and a communicator. Who do we hire?
Well, I mean, he's been getting like, coach speaks, spewed into his ears for his entire life.
Right. Coach speak.
Yeah. Coach speak. Just a lot of that PC coach speak stuff. But yeah, no, it's a legitimate question. Not a hard answer though. For me.
The other one we've asked before, which
is just a unfair bullshit. I hate it so much. And I know what you're going to say.
What?
2001, the championships, or no, the 2001 season, or like which one hurts more? That's the question.
No, not hurts more. It was something, I forget the exact question we asked, but what would you trade in order to not have 2004 happen? Like which championship?
Yeah, but it was always positioned as, it was 2001 or 2004? Like which one? Gun to your head.
Oh yeah, gun to your head. If you could change the outcome of 2004 ALCS, so you don't know if the Yankees are going to beat the Cardinals in the World Series, which they would have stomped the floor with the Cardinals, or you could change Game 7 of the World Series in 2001. What would you change? Yeah. And I think it largely depends on how old you are.
I think so.
Because if you were our age,
I mean, if you're around then and watched either one of those.
No, but like if you were really young then, if you were young in 01 and 04, and then you're just thinking like, well, I'd rather have the guaranteed championship, fine. But if you lived through that, like I was in whatever it was, 11th grade in 2004 or 10th grade, I think I was depressed for 4 months after they blew that lead to the Red Sox.
Well, then, okay, now I understand what you're saying as far as age, because I would have gone the opposite, because I think all the context matters in the sense of what happened as well. So
Of
depending
course,
on how
that's
old you
one, yeah.
were, that like the outside influences start trickling in. It's not just baseball.
Okay, well, that was
Okay.
coming out from just baseball. Anyway, did you enjoy the Yankees postseason or after season press conference? You enjoy
Yep.
what Cashman and
We
Hal
learned
and
so
everyone had to
much.
say? Yeah.
We learned so much. They were actually at a sports conference for analytics, so there was a lot of interesting. I got my updates. Actually, I got more updates from people that I'm connected with on LinkedIn than I did from the New York Yankees, because of conversations that happened in hallways and outside of different breakouts for conferences. That's where I got my updates. So I know Hal and I know Randy were at sports conferences in New York over the past couple of weeks. So yeah, there's been no actual update from them, but everything I'm seeing from my LinkedIn updates and again, not coming from the Yankees, just people who I'm connected with on there, are the Yankees are absolutely doubling down on the analytics side and committed to finding the right piece of the puzzle and making sure that they're tinkering with the right things.
I've got the thing you dropped in our chat right here from someone who works at DraftKings, I guess. Hal Steinbrenner is on a mission to leverage data and insights to bring a World Series championship back home to the New York Yankees.
Yeah.
That's what they're focused on this offseason.
I saw a video clip on Twitter last night from I don't know where I saw it. It just came up in my timeline, and it was from Fishman, the assistant general manager. Is that what his position is? And my God, is it the nerdiest? I think it's from last year's GM meetings. From what I remember, it's
he's a king nerd.
Oh my God! And when I hear that, I'm just like, we're fucked. we are completely screwed. There is a dot matrix printer somewhere that this guy has used and has a stack full of papers, and he's not even using spreadsheets. He's using papers and just looking through it, going, no baseball, none.
No baseball. Yeah, I don't know. The whole data thing they're focused on this offseason. Again, I'm not gonna like shit all over it and say you shouldn't be doing that stuff. It's just that's not gonna change anything in 2024. I keep saying that. I sound like a broken record. It's like there's things that are gonna be long term for this organization that I would love to see change, and if how to better leverage data and apply them to making player decisions on the field, not only in game but also roster building. I'm all for that. But you've got so many problems to fix with this roster immediately. You can look at all the data and model out 10, 20, 100 years. They ain't going to change shit in 2024. How are you going to fix the 2024 Yankees?
When I look across and I see the two teams that are the hottest right now, the Rangers and the Phillies, that essentially constructed their teams from free agency with there were some good young players in there as well mixed in, but one of them was a fleece from the Yankees. But you see how it's not rocket science, but also when you're looking at data and analytics at some of these guys, first of all, some guys are just clutch and show up. They just show up, and you got to know that. You just got to know, like Schwarber. Yes, he hits a lot of home runs. He strikes out a lot, but goddamn, when the clock turns playoffs, I want that guy on my team. It's just there's a different feeling. Bryce Harper is an all-time player.
Harper's the one.
Harper's an all-time player, but he's different.
He's got balls. He's got balls, and he's got like over 1,000 OPS in the postseason, and he makes like $24 million a year.
His contract's like 19 years long.
It's 13 years long, but he was 27 years old. You're already paying guys to their 40 years old, except you're paying them $37 million. You might as well get the prime years and a lower AAV. How many times do we have to talk about Brian Cashman saying roster flexibility? You know what gives you roster flexibility? Having an MVP candidate in his prime at only $24 million, not a former MVP past his prime who can't run. He can't run around the bases because he can't make that sharp of turns. He can't lift his arms above his head. Giancarlo Stanton, who, yeah, you're only paying $22 million because Miami's picking up a big chunk of change, but he's hitting 192.
Yeah, and there was David Cohn on his podcast was talking about saw some clips from that. Basically, things that we were reiterating and mechanically that Giancarlo Stanton is kind of a mess right now, and the fact that he doesn't really engage his lower half is a massive problem. So, again, he believes that he's a couple tweaks away from fixing his problem. I hope so. I don't see how that's possible because it does look like it's physical. That's limiting the way that he's able to actually, have good mechanics in a proper swing. It's kind of a mess.
There was something from John Heyman I saw posted somewhere that it was a quote from Bryce Harper's dad, where it said they were devastated the Yankees didn't seem remotely interested when he was a free agent.
Yeah, there wasn't even a conversation, right? If I remember correctly. And I know Harper was asked about that recently. And he definitely just, dismissed the question to a point where just happy to be in Philly. First of all, I'm so jealous. Honestly, I look across, I love it. I want that.
Hold
so
on,
badly.
Though. Hold on. Why all of a sudden is the sporting public being like, wow, look at those awesome Philadelphia fans? I thought Philly fans were some of the most vile, hated people on earth.
They've definitely been in the crosshairs, just as Yankees fans have, of being
but Philly has a reputation for
Philly
being
they throw batteries.
dirty fans.
They boo Santa Claus. I know.
Exactly.
They have the thing.
So now why all of a sudden, just because the Phillies are a fun team, which they definitely are a fun team, and that place is raucous as shit. Yeah. Okay? That ballpark looks like a hell of a good time, as long as you're wearing a Phillies jersey in the crowd.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. There aren't very many probably how many over under on Diamondbacks jerseys that are happening in Philly right now?
Yeah, 5? I feel like when they go to Arizona and play there, it's going to be 50% Philly fans.
I mean, do you even boo a Diamondbacks fan? I don't even know how you treat that.
I don't think anyone cares about the Diamondbacks. The Yankees hate the Diamondbacks because of 2001, obviously, but I don't think anyone else in baseball even knows the Diamondbacks exist.
Yeah. So but yes, it looks like an amazing time. That team just looks
fun,
gelling so well.
They look fun.
Rob Thompson just over there being a baseball guy. It's just they're what you want. They're what you want. And I'll tell you why. The other thing you're talking about the fans in Philly and how the bad rap. The reason they have the narrative has changed a little bit right now is because the players are talking about how good the fan base is right now.
Yeah.
And when you have vocal players that are talking about a fan base and how amazing the stadium is during the playoff games, you can't go anywhere else but saying like, yes, they are the best. They are loud. They are passionate. They are into it. That's what the other side of that becomes. Unless they start losing. You start losing, then you start seeing the other side of it.
You know what helps? I feel like they hit 3 home runs in the first 2 innings every single game.
Yeah. And we know from being at Yankee Stadium, when you have early offense, that place goes nuts and stays at a different level when there's early offense. It really that's the best way to get the crowd into it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the Bryce Harper thing. It does sound like a broken record because you just look on any article about the Yankees right now, which there's not much. The only thing people are talking about is, man, the Yankees look stupid for not retaining Jordan Montgomery because he's continuing to shove in the postseason. And man, how can you imagine they didn't even sign Bryce or didn't even attempt to sign Bryce Harper, and he's a all-time playoff performer in his prime, making $24 million. So. That's what you're going to see.
The funniest part about that whole thing is that the roster construction and the fit of him.
I know, because he'll play anywhere. He'll just go play first base. Yeah.
How long have the Yankees been dying for a left-handed power-hitting first baseman?
but even if he was never going to play first base, it's like they were like, oh, well, now we have Stanton, who's the DH, and we already have Judge. Well, Bryce Harper can play center field. Bryce Harper can play left field. Bryce Harper caught when he was in high school,
and college. When I hear about a guy that's currently a position player that caught coming up, give me that guy every single time. Like legitimately, he can play anywhere. He can absolutely play anywhere.
Sure. Yeah. That's why you see middle infielders move to catcher or vice versa, like IKF, like not comparing Bryce Harper to IKF, but just like being able to physically play a position. Like catcher is the most demanding position. Not every catcher, you're not going to see Jose Molina going out there trotting around center field.
No, I'm talking about the guys that are position players coming up into the major leagues that have a background playing catcher. That's the makeup that I'm talking about. Those guys have all the baseball instincts because
Well,
they've mastered the position that they're currently in, and they played catcher, growing up and at a decently high level that was competitive. So even if you're just in high school at a high level and then into college, like you got to know what you're doing back there for that to happen.
Well, Brian Cashman and his Legion of Nerds couldn't even figure out, the gif of all the equations going on screen. They couldn't fathom how they could fit Bryce Harper on the roster. So now, how are they going to even figure out how to fit Shohei Ohtani on the roster? It's impossible. Can't fit that guy on the roster. We shouldn't even go talk to his agent.
Yeah, he just blocks. He just blocks it. So real quick, I have there was a championship in my life finally. Yeah, softball last night.
Nice.
Don't worry about it.
Congratulations.
Okay? It was a marathon.
Is this the men's
night.
league that you're playing in with former NFL players?
Yeah.
You guys won. You have how many former pro athletes on your team?
We got Nate Collins played with the Giants and the Bears and the Jaguars. Oh God, here it goes again.
That was a perfect zoom. That was a perfect zoom.
I don't know how to zoom
on
out.
YouTube.
I don't know how to zoom out. The
You have 3 former NFL players playing on this softball team.
we have 4. We have 4.
Four.
We also,
okay, 4. So congratulations,
couple
you won.
But
you
here,
won.
to be fair, now I can't zoom out. How do I zoom out on this thing? You're gonna have to cut this.
No, we're keeping this in. We're keeping this in.
The what was I gonna say? Oh, but so I transitioned and I
Logan, we know what clip you're gonna do now. This is the clip.
Yeah, no, I was pitching both games last night, so we had to win the first one. The other team was they thought they were going to mop the floor with us. They had to be fair, like what's more useful, having 3 former UVA baseball players and a VMI baseball player on your team, or 4 NFL guys? Because you could go
no definitely I'll give you that former college D1. That's D1. Former D1 baseball players definitely better than NFL. So
yeah. So we got those guys. And I pitched 0 walks, just throwing dimes out there, and got the final. It was great. It was a lot of fun.
So
so that's the only thing on the diamond.
Do you get a trophy? Do you get a ring? What do you get?
I got a t-shirt.
Did you do champagne? You got a t-shirt?
Yeah.
Did you pop champagne?
No champagne. Someone did have cigars though, and my mouth still tastes like that, which is not great the next day.
Okay.
But yeah, it was fun. I got a little taste of sweetness on the baseball dirt.
It's the only championship that you've experienced in
a while.
15 years.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's good. Now I'm sitting like really far back from my computer, but
okay.
So tell me what we're talking about.
Well, we were the 15, 17 minutes in. We're going to talk about Gerrit Cole's season, which he's likely to win the Cy Young. Obviously, the awards have not been announced yet, but he leads the AL in so many categories, and he definitely deserves to be the Cy Young this year. So we just wanted to look at his season and where that ranks in Yankees history, not only among other Cy Young winners in Yankees history, but just of great pitching seasons in Yankees history. So Cole this year, 209 innings pitched, a 15-4 record, 2.63 ERA, 222 strikeouts, .981 WHIP, a 165 ERA plus. That means he was 65% better than league average on the ERA front. 3.17 FIP. Led the American League in win-loss percentage, ERA, games started 33, innings pitched, ERA plus, and hits per 9 innings. And he led Major League Baseball in pitcher WAR and WHIP. And he was second highest WAR among all AL players outside of Ohtani. There's that man again, Shohei Ohtani, who, when you hit and pitch at elite levels, guess what? You're going to rack up some more. But Gerrit Cole should definitely be the American League Cy Young. So first of all, I'll say this about Cole's season. I hate that it came this year because it's not going to be remembered like it should be because the team was so garbage.
Yeah, no, that's the first thing you think of, actually. It's like, oh, so what happened that year? They had a good team. They advanced. It was part of a campaign that everybody was proud of. No, it was at a dumpster fire season. And it's unfortunate that they wasted a good one. That just pisses me off even more when you think about the construction and how things have gone down. You're wasting prime years of guys that are all-time greats, basically, with Judge and Cole. And the fact that this happened on this year is highly unfortunate.
Yeah. And it's not to the extent that the Yankees wasted Judge's 62 home run season, because they did win the division that year and they went to the ALCS. Obviously, still a disappointment last year, but this one really feels like, man, you wasted an all-time pitching season from Cole, unfortunately. But where does that rank in Yankees history? So let's first talk about the prior Yankees Cy Young winners. The most recent one has been Roger Clemens in 2001. He pitched 220 in the third innings that year, 20-3 record. That's back when you won 20 games, and 20-3, obviously, an amazing win-loss record. 3.51 ERA. That might not sound great, but we have some context on where offense was in the league back in 01. 213 strikeouts, 1.257 whip, a 128 ERA plus. He was eighth in the MVP voting. He led the American League in wild pitches, a lot of splitters in the dirt that Jorge couldn't block, I guess. And winning percentage, he led the Major League Baseball in that. Now, I also want to talk about Mike Mussina 2001 as we talk about this, because there are some, I've seen nerd arguments back when Mussina was getting elected to the Hall of Fame. What year? That was recent, right? That was within the last 4 or 5 years that Mussina went into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And Mussina never won a Cy Young award, if I'm not mistaken. And a lot of people were saying, well, 01, he was robbed of a Cy Young, and he was robbed by his own teammate. There is a decent argument that Mike Mussina actually should have been the Cy Young winner in 2001. And you tell me, as I read these numbers, why you think he didn't win the Cy Young. So in 01, Mussina, 228 innings, 17-11 record, 3.15 ERA, 214 strikeouts, 1.067 whip, a 143 ERA plus, so 43% better than league average, whereas Clemens, who won the Cy Young, was 28% better. Mussina, he finished fifth in the Cy Young behind Clemens, Mark Mulder, Freddie Garcia, and Jamie Moyer. Blast from the past. And he led the American League in FIP. Why do you think he finished fifth in Cy Young with those kind of numbers?
Yeah. I'm trying to think of. It's a great question. Tell me the answer.
11 losses.
You think just because of the mark of 11 losses, because that was a consideration?
Yes. Not only was it a consideration, it was like the first thing voters looked at. What was your win-loss record? That started to change into like the late 2000, late aughts. Like whenever Felix Hernandez won with a 500 record, that was like 2009, I'm guessing 2009-ish. That obviously changed by then. But voters were not looking at those advanced ERA
it's
metrics.
Not even advanced though when you're looking at what happens there. It's pretty clear that there's a team. I mean, when you compare just straight up in 2001, Clemens' earned run average over 9 innings compared to Mussina's over 9, you can tell that I don't even have to look at this. I'm sure that the run support was different, and in both of those guys' games. Because if Clemens was giving up 3.5 and Mussina was, closer to, what was he at, 3.15, so closer to 3, there's a clear disparity in run support.
I'm sure there was.
It's pretty clear on the surface.
In the voting, though, all the guys ahead of Mussina had more wins.
Yeah.
Listen, I can't put myself back in the voter's shoes 22 years ago, but it would strike me as that's probably why Mussina finished fifth. Now, I don't know if he deserved to win that year. Clemens also had the reputation, which I think helped in voting when you're a previous Cy Young winner and you won 20 games and you only lost 3 games, especially voters who did not follow the team day in and day out. They look at that and like, well, he was the most dominant pitcher. He won 20 and he only lost 3 times.
Yeah, I think it's actually bigger than when you see the 3, the win-loss. So yeah, if you're looking at that, the fact that you only lost 3 games, meaning that you did what you needed to do to win that. And you're right. I know writers did look at that, more often. And that's you could make the argument back then, if I'm putting myself back then, a lot of the argument was like, well, he pitched on a given day. He did what he needed to do on a given day and the team won.
Right. Did you outpitch the other pitcher on the other side? Did you hold the offense down that you were facing? Yeah, because also like every time you go out there, not all is created equal. You're facing Clemens out there facing the Red Sox or someone in 0-1, different offense than when you're facing the Royals, maybe the next week or something like that.
I mean, Mussina was not like, it wasn't like a 1 and a 5. It was,
of course not. It was a 1. It was a 1A. I mean, they also had Pettit on the team. They also had Cone was gone at that point. Oh God, who else was in that rotation? That rotation was filthy. El Duque was still in that rotation, I'm guessing.
El Duque was in that rotation.
And then who am I missing? Who was the other pitcher that I'm missing there? I don't know. Can't remember. So the offense back in 2001 across the league, we were looking at some of these numbers. And if you compare it to this season, there was 3,000 more hits in 2001 across baseball in 2001 than there were in 2003. There were how many more runs? We just had this. There was almost 1,000 more runs scored. So because there were so many more hits and so many more runs, the lineups turned over so much more. So there's a lot more plate appearances and a lot more at bats across the league. We know this, but then there's like some other numbers that are not as stark. Like there were more home runs this year than there were back in 2001. And everyone would have probably guessed like, 2001, middle of the steroid era. There's going to be way more home runs then than there are now. No, there wasn't. Home runs are still up, in the recent games. Just the runs, which is the ultimate goal of the offense. We're not as many runs because not as many hits, not as many base runners today as there were 20 plus years ago.
Ted Lilly was the other pitcher, just so you know.
Ted Lilly, no.
He started 21 games.
He did 21. He started 21 games.
El Duque started 16 games, Pettit 31, Clemens 33, and Mussina 34.
Okay.
Sterling Hitchcock was also on that team that started 9 games, and Randy Keisler, who I do not remember, started 10 games. That name doesn't even sound familiar.
No, not to me either.
But yeah, the offense was different. You're getting, there's a lot more strikeouts today. Obviously, guys are not the approach in hitting has changed completely. So and this is exactly why I wanted to talk about those numbers, because I think it's important when you talk about context of different eras. The nuance matters with different eras. The context matters, and when someone pitched, when someone played in the history of the game, because the game has ebbed and flowed and evolved and just changed straight up. So you have a lot of different variances that go into it. I don't think one takes away from the other at all. Not to mention, like, Clemens, granted he was on the same side as a lot of these guys, but you're going up against guys who are using some extra muscle in there too. So you're up against some things, so you could argue looking
Clemens
back,
was out there all natural.
Mussina probably, a little bit extra right there for his accolades in that season and leading up to it. But yeah, it's different. But when you could compare these numbers to what Cole did this year, and on a good team, if you want to go win-loss, like he's winning 20 plus games probably, or right there, right at it. And his numbers look very similar to Clemens, but all of the actual statistics that are against the batters, the ERA, the strikeouts, all of that is
better,
is higher and better. Yeah. So he was.
Yeah. My next question was going to be, would you rank Cole's season ahead of Clemens and Mussina? And I think the answer is yes.
I think it's close. Again, it's tough to, I think, go across eras because they're going up.
Well, that's
against
what we're doing.
Different
that's the
yeah.
thing we're doing.
That's
we're
what
going
we're doing.
across
Okay.
eras. We're crossing eras.
Yeah, I still think 2001 was probably better.
2001 was better.
I would put Mussina at the top of that list, honestly. Like, I think you look back and you could make an absolutely great argument for Mussina to win the Cy Young in 2001. You really could.
I know, that's what I've been saying, but like,
yeah, that's why I'm saying that if you go back, you had 2 of those guys that were doing that with all of the differences in offense. I think 2001 was probably more impressive.
Okay, just because of even if you look at like his ERA plus, Gerrit Cole is 65% better than the league average. So that's what we're doing. You're comparing across eras, but you're also comparing how they were relative to the rest of the league at the present time, or at the, in their time.
Yeah, that's fair. It's also tough to do that, I think, when you're looking at you have to bring into context what else is happening in the league at the time too. You got a lot more guys that are pitching deeper into games back in 2001. There's a lot. It's a different.
Cole, 209 innings. I know it's less than 220, 228.
Oh, Cole, I'm not saying Cole didn't. Cole was great. Cole, that was the big thing that we needed him to fix from our critiquing of him, is to go deeper into games, to finish games, and he did that. He put the Yankees on his shoulders many times. He did exactly what he needed to do. The team failed him. But when you're looking across the league, when you're looking at averages and you're trying to compare him to the rest of the league, which a lot of those advanced metrics do, that's where it gets tough for me, because the league was different too, and like the mean was at a different place compared to where it is today.
All right, so this next season, Ron Guidry, 1978. I think this is the season in Yankees history for Cy Young winners. 273 and 2/3 innings pitched, a 25-3 record, a 1.74 ERA, 248 strikeouts, 0.946 WHIP, a 208 ERA plus. So it was more than twice as good as the league.
Yeah.
Second in MVP, led the major leagues in wins, win-loss record, ERA, shutouts, ERA plus, like everything. He led in everything. 273 innings and a 1.74 ERA as a starting pitcher. I don't care what era you're pitching in. How are you going to top that?
I mean, that's one of the best seasons by a starting pitcher in baseball history. Like that ranks up there. Guidry was absolutely filthy. 273 innings. Again, like the construction of the teams were different.
That's like 8 innings every time he's taking the ball. Minimum.
Yeah. Well, and purely because that's your job. You know what I mean? Like that's what you're going out to do. You have to do that because you don't have the middle relievers and the guys at the end of the bullpen to come in and save it. It's you. It's that the buck stops with the starting pitcher. And he took that very seriously. And I took that personally. And he went out there and dominated. When you see the 1.74 ERA, that's insane. In a Greenies era, everybody was up.
Do you know what still the silliest ERA of all time is? And it also is 1.74. It's Pedro's 1.74 ERA in 2000.
Yeah, Pedro was nasty.
Oh, but like he had a 1.74 ERA in the middle of the steroid era. The next best guy was like a 3.
That's crazy. Was that really the next best guy?
I believe. Yeah,
it was close to that. Yeah.
I'm just going off memory, but so 2000, Pedro won the Cy Young, as he should have, and he had a 1.74 ERA. Where is the Cy Young voting? And then so Pedro had a 1.74. The second place Cy Young voter, Tim Hudson, that year, what do you think his ERA was?
3.3.
4.14.
No.
That wasn't the next best ERA, because there's guys on this list with a 3.5. Todd Jones, 3.52.
Detroit?
Yeah. But Pedro won the Cy Young with a 1.74. Tim Hudson came in second with a 4.14.
That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, that shows Pedro was to me the most dominant right-handed pitcher that I have seen. And he was unbelievable. He was so difficult to hit. He tortured us for a while.
Oh, we're not talking about Pedro.
No, we're not
anymore on this list. Well, the Yankees have back-to-back Cy Young winners, so I think we're both ranking Guidry's 78 season above anything else in Yankees history, so, even though we weren't alive to see it. But the Yankees did have back-to-back Cy Young winners, because Sparky Lyle in 77 won it as a relief pitcher, 137 innings pitched, 26 saves, 2.17 ERA. 183 ERA plus. He led the American League in games appeared in and also games finished. 137 innings as a reliever, as like more or less the closer. Wasn't traditional 1 inning closer type guy. He would finish games. He'd come in the 7th inning or the 8th inning and just finish the game.
It's funny because he's acting like a starting pitcher today, but he did it at the back of a game.
Yeah, 137 innings. When's the last time Luis Severino topped that?
I mean, 137 innings is like the number of innings pitched on a good team for a number 3 pitcher today.
Right around there.
It's right around there.
It's like your number can it's like as you're mapping out your season. Like, can we get 137 innings out of our number 4 starter? No, probably not. He's probably good for like 105, 110.
Yeah, that's crazy when you think about that. And he was coming in at the end of he was pitching all the games probably that Guidry didn't pitch in.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, his day off was the Ron Guidry starts.
Right. Yeah. I got Mondays off, and I got Ron Guidry's day off.
Prior to Sparky Lyatt was Whitey Ford in 61, 283 innings. God, the innings pitched are just crazy back in the day. 25-4 record, 3.21 ERA, 209 strikeouts, 1.15 ERA plus. So, the ERA is a little bit better than league average, but he did have the innings pitched and the win-loss record.
It's something to think about though too when you're looking back at here and understanding that things were different in the way that the game was played. The human body is different too. And it's like we've gotten conditioned to be weaker and more fragile.
This Scott Ryan or Nolan Ryan talking?
Yeah, but it's when you look at these guys.
Nolan Ryan called modern day pitchers pussies. Did not believe he called them pussies.
Did. It sounds about right. But I mean, just out of pure like the amount of volume on their arms is just so significantly different, and they were able to do it. Whereas today, they're not able to do it. And I know
the argument isn't if you condition properly, could a modern day pitcher?
They are not conditioned properly because they're not conditioned to do that any longer.
I know that's what I'm saying, because what teams have found out is that we would rather have you go max for a short amount of time than condition you to go longer, because you're not going to be as effective in that longer period of time. So what they're looking at is, I'd rather get 5 great innings out of you than 7 good innings out of you, because I'm going to get 5 great innings out of you and then 4 consecutive relievers to come in. I'm not saying this is right or wrong. I'm just saying that's how teams are operating today. That's why this is happening. And then it's this snowball effect of, well, I need to go max effort for 90 to 100 pitches. That's 5, maybe 5+ innings. I'm not conditioned to throw 125 pitches over 8 innings every 5 days. So I can't do it. Yeah. And then I get hurt.
Well, there's a regulator on these guys.
Watch your hands. You're going to zoom in. You're going to go.
I don't think I can zoom in any further, to be honest. Yeah. I can't not talk with my hands. This is a problem. I'm looking at the box scores of so when the thing is too, when you get to the playoffs, and Nola threw 6 innings last night, but
every pitcher, like Montgomery pitched 6 1/3 the other night. Verlander pitched 6 innings. Like you've got, it's 6 innings for these number 1 type pitchers in the playoffs. 6 innings.
Well, there's also just limiting. You don't have the tolerance for risk in the playoffs either to push it into the 7th, 8th inning when you have, a talented bullpen of guys who are throwing 100 miles per hour coming out. So yeah, it is different. But
let's imagine a world the Yankees made the postseason this year, and you've got Gerrit Cole coming off likely a Cy Young season, and he's at 100 pitches in the 6th inning. Are we like, the conversation is, well, who we bringing in that's better than Gerrit Cole at that point?
It's really hard to have this conversation in the context of today's Yankees, but. Yeah,
Tommy Kahnle's coming out of the bullpen. You good with that, or you want Gerrit Cole to pitch another 15 pitches?
Yes.
Yeah,
I want Gerrit Cole to go 7. And yeah, who said that? Was that Clemens, or was that someone? Messina?
Sabathia said Sabathia. Like, unless it's Mariano coming out of the bullpen, I'm better than the next guy.
Yeah, and he's right. Me at 100 pitches, or that guy? Me at 100 pitches. When you look at all time. Speaking of CeCe, I know we're going to get into some other great Yankees pitching seasons, but yeah.
And the last Cy Young season on here, Bob Turley in 58, 245 innings, 21-7 record, 297 ERA. So I think you're torn on the 01 seasons, but Guidry is the pinnacle of Yankees pitching seasons. I think we're all in agreement there.
Yeah. And the other thing about Clemens and why he got that too is like the power pitchers. I think you just default to the power pitchers over the guys that
a guy who know how that pitch. Was Clemens's 4th or 5th Cy Young in his career at that point. And he had a reputation around the league, obviously. 20 wins, only 3 losses. Yeah. He was the quote unquote number 1 pitcher on the Yankees.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you have more wins as the number 1 pitcher, how do you give it to the guy that wasn't the number 1 pitcher?
Right. Some other great seasons in more recent history. I think we looked at like 96, 97 to today. Andy Pettitte in 97, his second season. 240 innings pitched, 2.88 ERA, a 156 ERA plus. He finished 5th in the Cy Young voting behind Clemens, Randy Johnson, Brad Radke, and Randy Myers. But some great numbers out of Pettit there. We already talked about Messina in 01. CC Sabathia in 2011. 237 innings pitched, 19-8 record, an even 3 ERA, 230 strikeouts, a 143 ERA plus. Finished 4th in the Cy Young behind Verlander, Weaver, and Shields.
Jared Weaver?
Yeah, had to be. Was that Verlander's MVP season, 2011?
I don't remember.
Didn't Verlander win the MVP and Cy Young in the same year? So that probably was his season in which he doubled up.
That was that year, 2011.
What was Verlander's numbers that year?
So in 2011, he threw 251 innings and won 24-5 with a 2.40 ERA and 250 strikeouts.
That's dominant, man.
That all led the league. Everything I said.
Yeah, Justin Verlander,
172 ERA,
still pitching.
Justin Verlander still pitching. He's been pitching forever. Luis Severino. Hey, we got a Severino.
And this is exactly why we're always like, come on, Seffy, come on.
Because in 2017, 193 innings, a 14-6 record, a 298 ERA, 230 strikeouts, a 152 ERA plus. Finished 3rd in the Cy Young. And then I believe he finished top 5 in Cy Young voting in 2018 as well. So Severino, basically to start his Yankees career in 17-18.
The K rate, 193 innings pitched and 230 strikeouts. It's crazy.
Dominant stuff.
And that's exactly why there's
ninth in
such
Cy
a reach
Young
with him.
in 2018, and then just fell off a complete cliff due to injury, due to whatever you want to call it, mainly injuries, but extremely disappointing. And then I pulled a couple of Mariano seasons, 2 of my favorite Mariano seasons. 1996, he was not the closer, obviously. Someone who will not be named was the closer in 1996. 107 innings as a multi-inning relief pitcher for Mo in 96, a 2.09 ERA, 240 ERA plus, 130 strikeouts, a sub-1 whip. He finished 3rd in the Cy Young voting behind Pat Hetkin. Don't know who that is.
Blue Jays, Pat Hetkin. You don't remember him?
No, I don't. And then 2005, 78 in a 3rd innings, 138 ERA, a 308 ERA plus. Caught my eye for Mo. 3 times better than the league average on the ERA front. 0.86 whip. He allowed 12 runs the entire season. He didn't win the Cy Young. He finished 2nd behind Bartolo Colon. I think Bartolo Colon that year in 05, didn't have that impressive of numbers. I think he was one of those classic, he won 20 games. Yeah, if someone could look up Bartolo's numbers in 2005.
Was he with Texas then?
No, Anaheim, I believe. And I think he probably won 20 plus games and had a high 3 ERA.
Wow.
Won 20 games. Did I fucking nail it?
21-8 with a 3.48 ERA.
Yeah, classic. You're going to win the Cy Young every single time. Just like in 1997 when Juan Gonzalez had 150 RBIs. He was just going to win the MVP no matter what.
Yeah, the power numbers and the win totals were dominant for sure.
But I like to think that Mariano Rivera came into the 2005 season a little angry about how 2004 ended. So he's like, I'm going to be 3 times better than the league this year.
Yeah, it shows you when you have a guy like that in the back of your pen, how much stability it brings to a franchise and to the team across it. It's you don't have to worry about this at all. You take this off of your plate, take this off of the manager, take this off of your plate. It's just such a luxury to not have to worry about something for as long as we did.
How do you think Aaron Boone would mess up having Mariano Rivera in his bullpen?
Yeah, he would definitely screw it up somehow. They would make him throw a changeup, or they would definitely mess with his pitch selection.
He'd end up with a sinker, and then the cutter would disappear.
Right. Yeah. There would be some type of a new pitch in there. But he would definitely screw it up somehow. I don't know how it would be. It would come about, but it would. He wouldn't bring him in. Give him a rest day.
He wouldn't bring him in a key spot because
he threw a little too many pitches this week. We're gonna give him another day. We got an off day coming up. So we're going to double it up and give him take the opportunity to give him 2 days off.
Yeah, got to get the double off day. Don't want him on the Tampa turf.
No, right. That trot in from center field it's not even from center field, is it? There, it's not a good thing. Too much Too much weight on those knees with the concrete.
All right, before we get to some other topics, Game Time is our preferred ticketing app because it is the easiest way to buy tickets to whatever you want to go to, sporting events, concerts, comedy shows, theater, and much, much more. The app has so many cool features and is easy to use. It shows you trending tickets, what sections the best deals are in, and it calls out cheap options and flash sales so you can make informed purchases. The app is my favorite ticketing app to use. It's so much cleaner than some of the other ones out there. Everything is very easy to find. The UI is just, I think, very intuitive. There's also event cancellation protection with Game Time, so you can buy with confidence. You get images of your seats before you buy, so you know what to expect. It's a fast buying process, couple taps and you're done. Then the tickets go right to your phone. No digging through your emails or anything like that to find them. You can snag tickets today without stress using Game Time. Download the app, create an account, use code BRONX for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Thank you, Game Time, for being with us through these many, many months of the baseball season.
Through these trying times.
All right. How would you feel about a Jordan Montgomery reunion with the Yankees?
Well, I know how you feel about reunions, period. Just bringing anybody back that used to wear the pinstripes at some point and then got shipped off. I would be very open to it, and I would love it because I didn't want Jordan Montgomery to leave in the first place. And maybe this would be an about face. It's not like he was bad when he was with the Yankees. He wasn't.
No, but he wasn't this good. He
wasn't bad. He wasn't bad at all. He was actually very, very dependable. Let
me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Before Montgomery was traded, what would you have said his absolute ceiling is?
The 3.
Okay. And what would you say his ceiling is now? Well, we've seen his ceiling is higher than that.
He's a 2-3. He's still a 2-3 though.
He's not a number 1. I agree, but he's been pitching like a number 1 at times, which we didn't think was even possible. And he's going to get paid.
I wouldn't say we didn't think it was possible. We saw flashes of him that were good.
Did you ever think there was a world in which Jordan Montgomery would outpitch Justin Verlander in Game 1 of American League Championship Series?
Well,
because that's what happened.
I think context matters. Justin Verlander is like
Answer the question.
42 years old.
Doesn't matter. So answer the question.
42-year-old. No, obviously you look at Justin Verlander. We just talked about him winning a Cy Young and an MVP in a season. So yeah, he's not at that level. But when you look at dependability, when you look at a guy who he kept the Yankees in almost every game. He was never a guy that just got shelled all the time.
He was a really, really valuable middle to back into the rotation guy because he wasn't going to go out and get smacked around. But he was pretty much, you knew what you were going to get. You're going to get 5 innings. You're going to get 3 runs. He's a 4 ERA guy. Like that's what I thought Jordan Montgomery was.
He was pitching more. He was getting better too. He was not. You look at some guys who
he was getting better despite Yankees coaching telling him not to throw his 4-seam fastball. Which as soon as he got to St. Louis, they're like, "Oh, you know what? You've got a pretty good 4-seam fastball. Maybe you should throw that."
Yeah. That's also a problem. It just boils back down to the Yankees.
My fear with reunion is he gets paid. He's going to get paid. You know, we pulled some comps here. Like you look at Joe Musgrove, similar in age, similar in numbers. Joe Musgrove got 5 years and $100 million. Lance McCullers got 5 years, $85 million. Eduardo Rodriguez got 5 years and $77 million. So I think we know Jordan Montgomery, who's going to be 31 years old this December, is going to get 5 years on the open market. Is it going to be $80 million? Is it going to be 90, 100, 110? I don't know. It's going to be somewhere in that range. So you're going to pay Jordan Montgomery like a number 2 pitcher. And then he's going to come in here and they're going to be like, okay, let's see that sinker. Let's get that sinker going. We don't want we don't want the ball hit in the air at Yankee Stadium. You got to keep the ball on the ground, Jordan Montgomery. And so with reunions, he's going to go back. He's going to come back and he's going to be another 4 ERA pitcher. And you're going to pay him $20 million a year.
Or they learned something when he left the organization and they're like, oh, you can pitch with the fastball. You can pitch off of a fastball in Yankee Stadium. There have been plenty of guys that have had tremendous success with doing so. Stick to your bread and butter, kid.
Yeah.
And he's no longer a kid. You get to pay like he's coming in with some, with some demands. Like he's not getting, they're not telling him what to do anymore.
No, you got to woo him. They got to woo him.
He's at a different place with his development and confidence level too. I mean, the amount of confidence that this guy has grown with over the past, year and a half, and now, in the middle of a World Series run potentially, like the guy's oozing with confidence too, which is huge. It's huge. So yeah, I would be open to it because he's right now pitching like one of the best guys on the market.
Yeah,
He's a hoss.
Other guys on the market this offseason: Blake Snell, Aaron Nola, Sonny Gray. Oh, maybe we get a Sonny Gray and a Jordan Montgomery reunion party for the Yankees.
The Sonny Gray reunion can never happen.
And so I immediately have flashbacks to Javier Vazquez when the Yankees reunited with him. And it was a long gap because
I was going to say, this is different.
But they had Javier Vazquez in 2004. They traded him away for Randy Johnson. And then years later, it was like 2010 or 2011, they reacquired him after he pitched well in Atlanta. And guess what? Javier Vazquez sucked again with the Yankees. And now Jordan Montgomery never sucked with the Yankees. But my fear is you pay him, he comes back in, and you get your clearly dirty paws on him, throwing sinkers and not pitching like he's just been pitching the last season and a half, in which since he left the Yankees, his ERA has been 25% better than league average, and his FIP has been 20% better than the league average. He was never a 20 to 25% better than league average pitcher with the Yankees.
No, that's
and
true.
My fear is he comes back with the Yankees and he goes back to being a league average pitcher.
Yeah, I mean, your fears are valid because of the fact that the Yankees just screw things up a lot, and their coaching staff seemingly doesn't do the right thing to the individual player a lot of times. And they don't really tailor things as much as they probably should based on skill sets and confidence levels and the things that, individual people do well. They just say, hey, this is something that we believe in, so let's implement it. But it doesn't work with everybody, obviously. It does work with some people. It works with relievers pretty well. They've got a track record of changing some relievers and doing things with them, but not so much starting pitchers. The guys that you see come over here and pitch well usually have a track record of doing so. And now that Jordan Montgomery has left the organization, maybe that's a really good thing for the Yankees to look at.
Maybe in the contract, if they do give him one, there needs to be a stipulation that he can have outside coaching.
Or he could just do what he wants. He has say in what he throws. He doesn't have to, listen to just the analytics guys talking about things that don't matter. He's going to talk about what he feels. And yeah, he's probably got some off-season stuff that he's working on with outside coaching and outside analytics that are telling him that, yeah, your fastball, the spin rate on your fastball, really good. Actually, it's a plus pitch. You should work off of it because it makes everything else that much better.
It's interesting because there are some good pitchers on the market, not just the guys we mentioned, but also out of Japan. We already talked about Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who's the top Japanese
good job.
Starting
that was really
pitcher.
Good. That was really good for you.
I mean, he's just going to go by Yoshi. And then,
but you're not good at that, and you did a really good job right there.
It's just rolled off the tongue.
Yeah.
And then I was reading an article last night about this closer, Yuki Matsui, left-handed closer out of he plays with the Eagles. He's 5'8". 167 pounds, and he already has 10 years of service time in Japan, so he doesn't have to go through the posting system. I believe he's going to be 30 years old or 29 years old, but in 501 career games with the Eagles, he's posted a 2.40 ERA, 236 saves, and 659 2/3 innings pitched. I would be pretty surprised if the Yankees go out and get a relief pitcher from Japan on the open market. I think they'll be in on Yamamoto. I mean, clearly, there's reports they'll be in on Monty and maybe some of the other starting pitchers hitting the market this offseason. But again, I still think offense and position players are the bigger thing of need for the Yankees. But there's a lot more pitching on the market than there is offense on the market.
Pedro Martinez weighed like 165 pounds, soaking wet, speaking of.
Great. Okay.
Well,
he wasn't 5'8", and he wasn't a lefty closer.
He wasn't tall and still isn't. He's probably getting shorter. He was what, 5'9", 5'10"? I'm sure he's listed higher than that, but
Yuki Matsui, the next Pedro?
Possible. Yeah, it's possible.
Possible.
Yeah.
Not likely.
No. I think they should look everywhere for good baseball players. Everywhere. Every single place for good baseball players. And if they've had success, they should look at them and probably hire someone outside the organization to go and look at them more closely and give them a fair assessment of how their skills are. And then they can, wrap some analytics around whatever they want. But I need some baseball guys to tell me some baseball things about the baseball players and wherever they play.
5'8", because the classic thing with a pro athlete is whatever they're listed at, take an inch off. And so
unless you're 5'8", because then it might be different.
I mean, this is going to be Jose Altuve out there pitching. That's what we're going to be watching.
Tom Gordon, Flash Gordon.
That's a good comp.
Flash Gordon was a
Tom Gordon was
he
definitely
was 5'9", 5'10", maybe.
He was thick though.
He was not. Not early days.
Wasn't?
Like these guys, no.
I remember Tom Gordon having some thighs. Like he had some power legs.
Look, you can be 5'8" and 175 pounds.
Look at Jason Dominguez. Jason Dominguez, he's a meatball out there.
Well, he's different. He's thick, but you can
That's
still
what I'm
have
saying.
some trunk. You can have some tree trunks.
Maybe this guy's got some trunk. He's got some junk in the trunk.
Yeah. Well, I hope so.
You need that. You need that as
in the
a starting
playoffs.
pitcher.
You need some. You know.
you need that as a starting pitcher. You need to use the lower body. What did Carlos Rodon, the epiphany in that one good start he had? Well, I started using my lower body. Oh, good job, Carlos.
Right. I'm looking up Tom Gordon and his and what
I think Ilya just dropped it in here. 5'9", 160 for Tom Gordon.
There you go.
That's and Pedro was listed at 5'11", 170.
He was not 5'11". He's not 5'11". He's 5'10" I don't know about that. At the best.
Well, I said take an inch off. All right, last thing to talk about is that Randy Levine, also at that sports conference.
It's that time. It's that time of year for Randy to start speaking up.
Yep. Just crickets from the organization, but let's hear Randy open his mouth. He had some things to say about revenue sharing discrepancy. He said a lot more focus has to be on individual teams to do better and not just rely on revenue sharing. You can't have 2 Florida teams averaging 15,000 fans. You can't have it. You don't go into an NFL stadium or an NBA arena and see that. And I think there's been a discrepancy issue that's got to get better. The commissioner has done an incredible job, but now it's on individual teams. Instead of complaining and whining, quote, we need more money, you got to go take some responsibility. And this is not the first time that Randy has had some things to say about revenue sharing, because back in 2016, he said that the Yankees revenue sharing bill was, quote, very burdensome and unfair compared to teams in our market that pay 10 times less than us. The way that revenue sharing works is all of the teams in Major League Baseball pool 48% of their revenue. And then that total amount is split evenly among all Major League Baseball teams. So it works out that about the top half of the teams end up paying a net amount and the bottom half of the teams end up receiving a net amount, with the teams at the top paying more and the teams at the bottom receiving more. And then for reference, the latest numbers I could find with like a good source was from 2019. This is from The Athletic. The Marlins in 2019 received $70 million. And the Rays were between $50 and $60 million. So that's where, as far as like receiving revenue sharing.
For one, I will say this: I don't remember. I don't think I remember it being 47%. I don't remember.
What do you mean?
48%. I don't remember it being that high as far as like what the portion of revenue was that was pooled. I thought it was lower number for whatever reason. So when I hear that number, like that's a pretty high number, honestly.
Yeah,
but yeah, look, as much as I can't stand when Levine opens his mouth, 97% of the time, it's 97% of the time, it's a disaster. He does have some legit gripes here, and I think across the league they do, especially when you look at Miami. Miami is not a small market. Miami would not be considered a small market in any regard. It is a major market. So the fact that they are receiving that much money in revenue share is a little egregious. So I do think there needs to be some type of stipulation in how much how you're spending. And I don't know how they exactly do this, because it goes to...
There is no stipulation because the Major League Baseball Players Association in the past has filed grievances specifically against the Rays and the Marlins for how they spend from their revenue. Because the idea of revenue sharing is you receive this money and then you invest it back into your team.
Correct.
But that's not what's happened.
Right.
And until they put in a stipulation that you only receive this money if it goes back into either players on the field or baseball operations or facilities or something like that, it can't go into the owner's pockets.
And that's exactly what they need to do, because it's not just the players. Because you look at Tampa, I mean, they couldn't even fill the stadium for playoff games. You have to put the money into other things beyond players as well. Like, yes, there should be a minimum that you spend on players. If you're going to be a major league owner you should have a minimum of what you need to spend. Frankly,
owners
like,
are never going to agree to that.
I know,
and
but
the Tampa owners' argument would be, we put a competitive team on the field, even if we're not paying big money for it. This is a competitive baseball team, and there's half the stadium empty for a playoff game.
Well, because your operations are not in the right place. The fact that you have a dumpster fire of a stadium in a terrible place. Oh, and by the way, you're looking down the same path, trying to put another ballpark in St. Pete when it's going to be the same fucking problem.
That's insane.
No matter how nice it is.
Why would they do that? What happened to the Ybor City plans?
They never got the property. I think there was something that went bad with the property. But these guys, the teams don't listen to the fan base that exists either. They don't listen to the why things happen. Like, you're telling me in Miami that you can't get a good crowd if you put the focus on different areas of baseball operations too. Like, there needs to be a bigger focus on other things, and clearly these guys aren't doing it. Like, there's no reason why a Miami team can't pack a stadium. Really, there's no reason, especially when you have a competitive team. And when you have someone like, even now and Miami's been so, the Marlins in general have been so
They've been so
used to this
up
where
and down.
They've been
so up and down so quickly that it's like the fan base gets whiplash. You win a World Series, you tear it down. You win something, you tear it down. You go out and sign guys in free agency. In what year was that, where they signed Jose Reyes and some other guys, Mark Burley, and then 2 years later everyone's traded. It's like you've got this outfield of Stanton, Yelich, Ozuna, and then a year and a half later all three guys are off your roster.
Yeah. And I know that ownership has changed, and that's a piece of it as well. You have to have a willing owner and ownership group to stay consistent with what you're paying. But again, like, I don't know how they do this, because it takes going back to turning cruise ships and but the players versus the owners is probably the one group that is just wedged in. You're wedged in. You're not going to get something like this is so significant in increasing the amount, the minimum amount for owners to spend across baseball, not only in salaries, but operations. It's just such a difficult, it's going to take 20 years for them to get to, a 10 to 15% increase because of the way that the process is, but it needs to change. Levine has a legitimate argument that, and a legitimate gripe, as do, and I'm sure he's speaking for many other owners who are spending money, that the Marlins are getting $70 million from revenue share, and they're in the market that they are in. It's bullshit. It really is. You look at other markets, that Kansas City, okay, I could see that, but like markets like that, Milwaukee, there are markets that does make sense, and that was really why it was implemented. It was to help the smaller market teams that don't have the ability to generate such revenue, to make them more competitive with players and be able to afford more and be able to compete with for more players in free agency, thus increasing salaries across the board too. That is why it was installed, not for a major market to just sit back on their ass but
if there's no regulations on how you use the revenue sharing money, and there never is going to be. I remember this when we were deep diving on the players and the owners during COVID, when they couldn't agree to get back on the field.
Yeah.
Even though there's a luxury tax system that is designed to prevent teams from overspending, it doesn't prevent them from overspending. You still have teams, Yankees, Dodgers, Mets, like all these teams going way above the luxury tax. There's no floor, though. There's no floor you have to spend. And the owners would never agree to a floor unless the players agree to a cap. That's basically each the bargaining chip that they have.
Yes.
And players are never going to agree to a cap, because then you're not going to get $38 million, because you can't build a team under a cap and pay guys. The cap would be somewhere around what the luxury tax is, $250 to $300 million. And it's like, it's hard to sign superstars that are earning $30 to $40 million and also complete a 26-man roster. All I'm saying is they each have that bargaining chip. Owners are saying, we want a salary cap. Players are like, we want a salary floor. And then they just butt heads and nothing happens. And that's going to continue to happen.
Here's the thing, though. When what you're talking about, there's pluses and minuses, and there's gives and takes to what you're saying, because if everybody is spending more money, then there are more opportunities for big name superstars to be spread across the league, because they have
Spread
to
across
spend
the
certain
league.
money.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's not to say that the top salaries can't remain top salaries. They would probably they would have to construct it so that it would stay with where the market price is. But now, because you have a floor, now you're giving the opportunity, or you're essentially mandating that all of the teams are looking at these superstars. So now you have the construction of these teams are completely different, because you have to weigh them with young guys that are controlled and superstars that are going to be more spread out. It's not going to be just 5 teams going after the biggest name players, or all of a sudden you get an emerging market like a San Diego that just goes out and spends insane amount of money in a 2 to 3 year space that inevitably is going to break it down and do the same thing Florida would do without the winning.
It hasn't happened yet, though. I mean, we keep thinking it's going to happen with the Padres, but like,
yeah,
time will tell.
That's an example, but I'm saying when you have the floor of spending, it's not going to. I don't think it'll affect the players as much, because you're just going to spread out those guys, which is a good thing for baseball.
And maybe a floor isn't the answer, but maybe something like the tax system just implemented on the bottom is the answer. Whereas if you don't spend to a certain amount, you're basically taxed out of your revenue sharing dollars.
Yeah, and that is an interesting thing, because if you have, based on and how you're going to get something passed like that, you have guys like Levine from the Yankees. You get enough big market teams who want to implement that, you could have some interesting, chaos inside the owners group. You could, and these guys aren't poor. These guys are not poor. The ones
no one who owns a major league team is poor. But in reality, it's the teams in the middle that are probably getting screwed the most, because it's like you've got teams that use the $10-20 million they do receive and probably do invest it back into the baseball team or the baseball operations, that are sitting there trying to build better teams, that are like looking at the Marlins like, what are you doing with that $70 million? I don't know. Maybe that's happening. Maybe that's not happening.
Yeah, I think the guys in the middle are probably doing about what they think they can, and that $10 million doesn't swing an organization one way or another.
It could mean a player or not a player for next season.
It could mean, but if there's a floor, then you know what you have to spend. You know it, and the owner walking into the door understands what they have to spend. Everything else changes a little bit more. You're more dependent on the fans showing up. You're more dependent on selling concessions. You're more like, there's a lot of different things that happen. Like, concessions are going up anyway, but might as well make them spend more money too.
And I'm not saying this is the fans' fault for these markets drawing 10,000 people a night, but like, some owners are probably looking at it like, why am I going to spend a bunch of money on this team and then still have 12,000 people come out to a playoff game, or whatever came out? Like, what was it? 20,000 people came out.
I don't know. Make the fan experience better then, it's
sure.
Make it better.
That's $1 billion stadium. Then it's like, you're talking about
the Savannah Bananas are making a fan experience better, and they're playing in minor league parks and independent ballparks across the nation.
I don't think the Savannah Bananas can compete in the AL East.
Well, against the Yankees, they might be able to.
Okay, that's going to wrap up today's show. Thank you guys for listening. We'll be back at you next week with probably more nonsense, since the Yankees aren't going to speak to us. And we'll see you then.